With our old strut assembly, what we need to do next, we need to compress the coil spring and remove it from the old strut, then we'll put it onto the new strut. In order to do that, you want to make sure you have it secured in a vise. Put a shop towel on both of the jaws to protect the strut. Let's go ahead and spin it down and make sure it's secure. Right there, feels pretty good. There we are, it's locked in place now. Okay, now here's the coil spring. In order to compress this, we have a coil spring compressor. And what it basically is, it's two fixtures. They're going to go on both sides of the coil spring 180 degrees apart, and as we tighten both of these up, it's going to compress the spring. The first step on this, we want to go ahead and oil the threads. Let's take some spray lubricant. Okay, now if you look at the fixtures, they actually have a locking device here. Once this goes into the coil of the spring, push the locking device there, that'll capture the spring inside of here so it can't come off. One thing to keep in mind is safety is really key here. Just take your time. If it looks like it's not compressing evenly, just go ahead and let it off and try it again. There's no sense in getting in a hurry. Both of the compressors have to be 180 degrees apart from each other. You don't want to have them close together like this. If you do, when they go to tighten up, it's going to want to bulge the spring. The way I've placed this is I need to be able to get my socket for my impact wrench. There's a flat right here, and there's a flat across from there on the other side, so that's really the only place to install them. What I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and rotate the strut. I'm just going to rotate it up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to kind of go back and forth between the two bolts with the impact because I want to put even pressure on them. I don't want to tighten one down a lot tighter than the other. If I do, the same thing's going to happen. It's going to want to bulge on us. You want to try to keep the compressor straight. You don't want it cocked on the spring. Okay, this is what we're looking for right here. When you have it to the point that the spring is free inside the strut, that we've got it compressed enough. Now, something to keep in mind, once we take the top shaft nut off the strut, you want to make sure and be very careful while you're handling this compressed spring, because we actually need to pull it off the body of this, set it away, keep it away from your face, don't drop it. If you can, then there's a good chance that it could come apart, and we don't want that. So we're going to take the nut off, take our upper mount off, slide the spring off, and then we'll go ahead and install the new strut in place. Look at the upper mount assembly, make sure that there's no cracks in the rubber or it's deteriorated. Now if it was, the nice thing about that is this is a replaceable part. This doesn't come with the strut, but you can replace the upper mount assembly. Now this is the bearing. This is below the upper mount. This is actually a little roller bearing assembly that actually turns as the strut turns. This is another replaceable part. Now this is the upper spring seat. Now, again, what you're looking for is any kind of damage on this rubber insulation. As a matter of fact, you can see the mark where the upper spring pigtail was. We want to make sure we place the spring in that exact location. There's the new strut. There's the old strut. Now there is a left and a right, and what that difference would be is the location of that brake hose tab. Let's go ahead and mount the new strut in our vise. We'll get rid of the old one. And we're ready to do the reassembly process. You don't want to over tighten it. You don't want to damage the housing of the strut or you've destroyed it. Let's go ahead and put this into place. To release that clip, just push in. And it is gas charged, so it's going to make the piston come right out. Okay, now on the bumpers, there's two different styles. If you look at this, we've got the one, this would be for the rear and this would be for the front. There's a difference in the diameter and also the style of the bumper. Let's go ahead and put the one for the front on. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and put the spring back in place. And one thing to keep in mind on the spring is there is a spot here where the pigtail goes onto the strut. You can see where it's got a bulge right there. You want to make sure you line that in the right place. Something else too to keep in mind is also the rubber insulation that's actually on the pigtail of the spring. You want to make sure that's in good shape. If it's not, you'd want to replace that. That might cause a squeak as this operates. Place the spring back over the strut, line up the pigtail. Now, the next part we want to put on there is the upper spring plate. And like I said, again, you can see where the pigtail was. So that'll be the alignment of it. Okay, we've got the upper seat lined. We've got the lower seat lined. Our dust boot is snapped into place. Next, we're ready for our bearing. But now on the bearing, there is a top and a bottom. If you look at this, on the bottom side, or facing the upper spring plate, you're going to see how there's no ridge on it. But on the top, we do have a ridge. That's going to face up. Let's go ahead and install it. We have a shim in here, this factory shim. We want to make sure this goes back into place. Let's go ahead and remove that. It's basically just a piece of cardboard. You can see how it has a crack in it, but that really doesn't matter. It's just a spacer. And then this is the piece we're going to replace. That's where the rubber mount is actually located inside of that. So we're going to take our new one, there, just like that. The same thing with our shim. Drop it back into place. Now this can be reinstalled. Okay, we have a lot of parts to hold together at one time here in order to put our nut on the end of the strut. Just take a pair of vice grips, and what we're going to do, we don't over tighten it, we want to adjust it so it holds it fairly snug. And make sure we keep it away from our spring compressor because we're going to have to release that. Right there, that's perfect. Okay, I've got it all in place. Now at this point, you should be looking at this much of the shaft coming out of the end of the upper spring plate. If you're not, go back and check your assembly. Make sure that the rubber bumper and our dust boot and everything's in place. We want to go ahead and put our upper bearing on it, the upper mount on it, and then put our nut on it. Then we go ahead and tighten our nut down. Use the packaged nut that comes with your strut. And there it is, the complete assembly. Let's go put it back on the car. As with any job, to do it right, you'll need the right tools. The nice thing is that jobs today don't require a large, expensive assortment. Basic hand tools are generally all you'll need. In case where a specialty tool is required, be sure to check with AutoZone's Loan a Tool program. They have many specialty tools that can help you complete your job a lot quicker and easier. The first things you'll need are a socket set, torque wrench, drop light, and a repair manual for your specific vehicle. You may also need screwdrivers or pliers to remove some components.
When lifting a vehicle, never work under it until it has been secured with wheel blocks and securely positioned on jack stands. A hydraulic jack alone is never enough. Be cautious when working with oils and chemicals. Many are damaging to the groundwater environment and toxic to people and animals. Never drain or pour chemicals into the ground or sewer systems. Local municipalities and counties offer resources for proper disposal. And always remember to wear your safety glasses.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Get the entire DVD for this repair and all other procedures covered in the Complete Car Care series at your local AutoZone store.